There's our theme tune.
Board games. We might be talking about board games and other games, but we're not gonna shout. Here on the over this side of me is the author known as CM Lowry.
Good rhyme.
CM Lowry has been a doctor and stuff and other things. Regardless, it's good enough that CM Lowry has sold hundreds of things, and that's what we'll talk about after we stop singing.
Tens
Hello,
of things.
well, I mean, I saw in your Instagram that you had hundreds of things in. You said you had like 100 things that you're posting.
That is true. You know, I have probably actually sold hundreds, just about, I think, like probably in the above 200 range. But yeah, that's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a three-digit number. It's hundreds. You
Right.
don't need. I mean, like it's maybe in the low hundreds, but like if it was in the high hundreds, it would be almost thousands. And then,
I think the only argument there is like 10.5 is a three-digit number as well.
yeah, sure. Okay, let me restate that. As far as integers go, as far as whole numbers go, because otherwise you could say, well, I sold 0.35 things because I ripped it up in a very particular way.
Well, I think
someone.
I mean 0.00 is a three-digit number. So, well, but respecting the integers. Anyway, I am a mildly successful, depending how you determine success at selling things.
So, to everyone out there, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It's 10 a.m. ish UK time. Time for Busy Beats and Bed Board Game Bladder, episode 848. Meeting Chris M Lowry on my side. And we're going to be chatting about memories, games, writing, crowdfunding, and more. And we're chatting because, partially because we know each other through Tabletop Gaming Live and other conventions. I've seen you, you've seen me, and you said, hey, I'd be interested in coming along to your leaving do, which would be exciting. I thought, well, before we do that, I'd like to get to know this person.
Exactly. I mean, I think you tend to be very visible at cons because you have everybody.
Red. I mean, I am not wearing that much red today compared to normal. I mean, there's a lot of, just for the record, this is a Christmas jumper, so there's also some white, some green, and then my bottoms, like, they're kind of only 50% red. So that's a low percentage for me compared to when I'm at the convention.
I may even run outside in a minute and grab my Christmas jumper because I've got a hi Josie. I've got a Jurassic Park Christmas jumper, which is pretty. But you're very visible at cons because not only are you in red, but you've got a whole army of people all motivated to be selling your just wonderful zany products. And I calling them products makes it sound annoying. Commercial, wonderful zany ideas. That's things, stuff.
Yeah, and hello, Johan. It is lovely to see. I hope you're generally well. And yeah, let's actually just crack on with the show. And let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. Josie says the Jurassic Park Christmas jumper sounds amazing. I'm trying to actually while
I need to. Okay, I'm going to run out. I'm going to run out and grab it.
So, yeah, I'm still not 100%. Honestly, I am feeling pretty rubbish. Yesterday morning, I said that I was skipping Friday daytime playtest, which is normally my favorite day of the week. But, and hello, Xate, it is lovely to see you. Recently, I've been playing a couple of games on Board Game Arena with Xate and Johan. And, Ticket to Ride. I also started playing this other game, which was abandoned, which was a shame. That is pretty damn cool. And yesterday I'm just physically unwell. But what I did do, which just going down, putting the recycling out was about as much physical exertion as I was able to manage. I did play a solo game of Dwindle, which I really enjoyed. Josie says, I love it, to your Jurassic Park Christmas jumper. And yeah, other than that, today was just kind of bumming around on the internet. Oh, I did watch the entirety of the first season of a BBC TV show called Back to Life. Have you heard of it?
No, I don't think Back to Life. No, I don't think so.
So Back to Life, it's about someone who's come out of prison, and it's about prejudice, and it's about trust, and trying to reconciliate with your friends and stuff. And yeah, it describes itself as a black comedy. And I mean, there weren't any moments when I actually laughed, or even smiled, but it felt like, yeah, I don't know, like it was short enough and maybe remote enough for my situation that it wasn't a pain to watch, but it was really fascinating exploration of the human condition.
Have you seen Home? Did you come across Home? It was on Channel 4.
No, I haven't.
It's a comedy about a Syrian asylum seeker who I think sneaks across the channel, like hiding in someone's boot. It's a really great. I think there's 2 series of it. It's really sensitive, but also, like, it manages to be very funny, and it plays with the line of the fact that obviously there's kind of racial tension in a lot of this, but it has a brilliant Syrian actor in it who it's very good, and it's very it really challenges some of your preconceptions. Like there's this one bit where the guy just says, look, the thing is, 2 months ago, my biggest worry in life was, how do I connect like my big widescreen TV to the surround sound receiver? Which HDMI cable do I use? And now I'm from a war zone, and like that was very I found that very challenging. This sweater is warm. I've seen a comment. It's too warm. I'm now wearing this and a jumper. So
you're going to have to take it off in a moment.
At some point.
And Sates, I hope you get well soon. Yep, sending healing thoughts to you, and hopefully some of them come back. And yes, I might be up for something light and thoughtless on Board Game Arena, since I guess you're not working today. But yes, what have you been up to? CM Lowry, what's a typical day in your life like? Tell us.
Oh, my life can be quite varied. So I'm actually on call as a doctor for the police at the moment. And this morning I got called 6 times, which usually it's pretty chilled, but I got called 6 times, and I actually literally had to tell the switchboard, you can't call me for the next half hour or so. Just put me on just pile up a list of things for me to deal with when I come off. You talked about light and thoughtless, or not thoughtless, but a game I've been playing quite a lot of is Monolith by Phil Walker Harding, board game, who made Barron Park. I don't know if you've come across that. It's really cool. You build a little
also kind of Sushi Go. Phil Walker Harding's just an amazing designer.
Yeah, but it's light enough that what I've been really enjoying is I play it with my 11-year-old and my 6-year-old, and me and my 11-year-old, we're properly playing the game and all the challenges. My 6-year-old is just trying to build a cube with layers, but it actually means that they can be competing with us on a different challenge, but actually at the same kind of speed as us. So that's quite nice.
And what else? Like, describe your Friday to us, like, if you, in as much detail as you're willing to do. And
I mean, you probably don't want too much detail.
I absolutely agree that having shows that teach us something and challenge us you can do that without beating us over the head with it. But I think it's really important to have things that do sometimes challenge you and make you think a little bit more.
It's Home on Channel 4. Like, you can view it for free on the streaming. So I'd say it's been one of the best things for that challenging kind of perspective. I've actually okay, so my Fridays often, it didn't involve this week, but often we've had a load of about 20 Iranian refugees join our kind of church community in the last year, and that has really challenged a lot of my preconceptions, because I'm pretty liberal, I'm pretty left, I'm pro open borders, like all of those sort of things. So, but then still some of these preconceptions you have, like all the guys I've made friends with, in my head they're these, you know, these people who don't have a job and live in an asylum seeker hostel, and just you end up layering some preconceptions about them. And then I helped to run a community centre, and we've been rewiring it. And then two of them were like, "Well, I'm an electrician. Like, do you want me to come and do that?" And I was like, "Oh, you're not just like a person who lives in a hotel. You're much more useful than I am right now. Like, as in, you're amazing, and you've got expertise and skills, and yeah, like I think one of the guys is a university lecturer, another one's like an accountant, and I'm like, yeah, and just it's amazing how much our prejudice and privilege and preconceptions, even when we think we're aware of them, can still just be there under the surface, can't they?
Yeah, it's really, sometimes we can see people only in one way, in one certain role, and that can be really damaging when we make people more one-dimensional than they really are, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think absolutely that's a challenge. Anyway, so that's a bit of my Friday. What else do I do on a Friday? Me and my wife usually spend a bit of time together because we're quite busy the rest of the week, and it's sort of, we suddenly become aware this is the last day the kids are in school before the weekend arrives, and we have to deal with them again. So we do that, and then I help run two different youth groups on a Friday evening. One of them, sadly, one of the main games that we play is Uno, which is a travesty and should not be allowed. But
it's not the worst game. I mean, the end can drag on a little bit more than I would personally like, but it's not as bad as some.
They often play the one game of Uno for a solid hour, which does not have enough interesting decisions for me. But it is an interesting challenge because the first youth group we run's in quite a deprived area, and yeah, like all the rules that we take, you know, like Monolith really rules like as in I could teach you it, Bez, I reckon, in about a minute, but it would be too much for our people. So it's good if they're having, ultimately, if you are having fun. There we go, there's Monolith. You can see there at the bottom you've got like a nice little like cube that you're trying to build, and you get points for how well you predict what colors are going to be on each side. It's good. It's got real vibes of patchwork meets Barron Park.
And so you're a doctor for the police, you said.
Yeah, I sort of stumbled into that job by being a massive extrovert, really. So I was on a train going up to Carlisle, and I couldn't find my mouse for my computer at home, for my laptop, and so I can't use the little trackpad thing. I always have to use a USB mouse, and I looked through my up there somewhere. Where have we got up there? I've got the hidden vortex of storage. There we go. And in there, I've got a box that's got loads of spare USB stuff. And I found this mouse. Sorry, this is an irrelevant story, really. But I found this mouse that's like a car. Like it's like a car with like headlights that light up and stuff like that. And it's terrible. Like, as an actual mouse, it's just useless. Like it keeps cutting out and it's terrible. So I was using this mouse, and there were people sat on the table opposite me. And I just sort of said, bet you're jealous of my mouse, aren't you? Just kind of chatting, and then I kept hearing them talk about how they needed to hire some more out of hours GPs, like GPs who work at nights and stuff, like repeatedly. And like the fifth time, I just was like, really not trying to eavesdrop, but I heard you mentioning this, and I ended up getting a job out of that conversation that ended up being my main job that I do, which was there you go, speaking to strangers on trains is a good idea.
So can you summarize in 30 seconds, like, what exactly that means? So are you a GP exclusively for police people?
No, so I actually have 4 jobs. So I work as a normal GP, like what you think of it as a GP. Then I work in A&E as an A&E consultant. But this police job, it's actually kind of cool because I'm not I wouldn't say I'm anti-police. I think some people in our scene are more kind of aggressively anti kind of police than I am. But what I like about my job is actually I don't work for the police at all. Our job is to is if somebody is in custody and is unwell. So what there used to be like police doctors that were employed by the police, but then you've kind of got this thing of if someone gets like beaten up or injured during arrest, and then you've got the people who already work for those people with a vested interest in potentially protecting the police, being the people who are also checking out the person who's been injured. So our job's to be independent, and if you're ill in custody or injured or any problems at all, the police ask us to check people. So we're actually like a little check and balance to make sure that.
So you're kind of almost, I'm not going to say against the police, but you're there to make sure that the police aren't overstepping, the boundaries or using excessive force.
I mean, I think we're actually both. We're probably protecting everyone, really. So we protect what we call the DPs, detained persons. We call them, rather than patients, you call them DPs. So we protect those people when they're ill, but we protect the police from any appearance of problems, or I've not seen any evidence of police brutality in the 2 years I've been doing it. But if there was any question of that is something that we protect people from. It's not really what I came on to talk about, but it's interesting, isn't it?
It's part of your life, and yeah, that is interesting. Site says, I mean, you've mentioned 3 of the jobs. Is the 4th job writing?
Oh, well, I suppose I didn't include writing because I feel like I need to make more money than I do to really kind of properly count it as a job. But I'm a community kind of pastor for our church as well. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose 5th job then. 5th job's writing, and 6th job is running Beyond Cataclysm, which is a publishing sort of label thing. So, where do I get the energy for this? I don't know, just extroversion. I think I might have a bit of ADHD. I have been assessed. I had a really unhelpful ADHD assessment where at the end of it they said, I mean, you might have ADHD-ish. Like, you don't seem to have most of the negative bits, but you seem to have a lot of the positive bits. Do you want ADHD? Like that, so they ended the assessment by saying, do I want the label? I was like, what? I mean, I don't know.
It's like, I mean, surely it's just a way to know whether certain drugs are good for you or to know how you should live your life. I mean, shouldn't be about whether you want the label or not.
Well, exactly. I have been prescribed the drugs and haven't found a day yet where I've been doing like non-critical stuff enough that I've been like, let's try this medication for the first time. So, but I will.
So, yeah, let's talk about a brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? And hopefully you've prepared something for us that you can remind us of that is brilliant.
Oh, okay. Yes. I don't know. I did read your message about that. Do you want me to talk about a thing that I've done in a self-plugging-y way, or something not like that? Okay.
No, just a mundane thing.
Okay, a mundane thing. I will show you this then. Okay, so this is my camera.
I mean, that sounds not mundane at all. That sounds quite exciting.
Okay. Well, this becomes more mundane now. So this specific lens, okay, is a 50mm prime lens. And so basically, when I bought my camera, I didn't have very good advice and got a Pentax, which no one's ever really heard of. And they became less and less popular. But I discovered that all the old lenses for Pentaxes are really, really cheap. So you can get these old film lenses. So that was about 30 quid. And if you bought like a modern one for a Canon, it'd be like about 400 quid. But it does these amazing photos where it's like, your nose is in focus and then your eyes are blurry and then your ears you just can't even see almost. So there you go. That's a brilliant thing. A 50mm prime lens.
So basically what you're saying is that just getting the right lens for the right job and getting something that it's not about having the zooms. Sometimes it's, take a bit of energy, move forwards, move backwards, and
I'd say it's actually,
you'll end up with a better photo.
I'd say it's about having the wrong lens for the job sometimes. As in, what I think is really fun about being stuck with a prime lens that just only can't zoom, just does that one, is it makes you be creative. Like, as in, you have to work within those limitations. I definitely seem to when I just go out with just that lens rather than like all loads of other lenses, I find that I come back more excited about the photos that I've taken.
Nice. So let's crack on and ask people to chip in some questionably quick questions. Is the next section. It's not an interrogation. It's just a questionably quick question section. So now's the time. Oh, I need to make sure that my laptop doesn't run out of charge because the wire was a bit fiddly.
Oh, how's the tomato juice game?
I'm enjoying it, as you might, tell that I do like tomato juice. Do you like tomato juice?
No, I don't like tomato juice. I like tomatoes.
What's your favorite vegetable?
Ooh, probably butternut squash. I had it the first time in South Africa about 15 years ago, and back then you just couldn't really get them in the UK. It's amazing, like how much it's only been. You don't really feel like our vegetable range will have increased in 15 years in the UK, but it has. Like you can get them everywhere now. There we go, butternut squash. Elf or reindeer? Definitely elf. I'm right. I've got a game on Kickstarter, which I won't plug too much or whatever, but I've got a game on Kickstarter at the moment that has loads of weird, distorted by nuclear waste. Oh, there we go. Distorted by nuclear waste elves. There you go. Oh, there we go. There's some elves. And I've actually got a Danish contributor who's just written a whole page on elves for me, called the not called elves. In I'm just looking it up quickly. In Denmark, they call them. I think they call them the Nissi. Let me just have a look. The Nissa is what they call the elves. So yes, I'm excited. I think I had it through about an hour ago, so I just need to read that.
Favorite red item?
I mean, it probably doesn't come far from being this jumper. I am very excited about this jumper. I can't think of another. This one's pretty good. So I one time that I was in South Africa,
wow.
We were working in something. I can't remember exactly what we were doing. I think we were doing a community feeding project. One of the people who worked in the project just gave me that, and it's come home with me. It's been a backdrop for things. It's been a tablecloth. I'd be really sad if that went missing. It would also take me years to realise it had gone missing.
I think Sates is saying that I am her favourite red item. I mean,
it's good red item.
I am dressed in red, but my actual face isn't actually red, but I do very much appreciate the love. Sates also says, I like tomato juice when mixed with beef and onion and garlic and Italian seasonings.
Thick tomato juice on pizza covered in cheese. Yes, I'm on board with that.
And also says, I lived in South Africa in 2003, definitely fell in love with lots of fruits and veg that you couldn't get here.
Like gem squash.
Gem squash? I have not heard of this. Tell us about it.
They're like these, just like just small, like a lot of like butternuts from the squash family, which is like the pumpkin family. Gem squash are these little round. Yes, there we go. I've actually got a friend who's got an allotment, a South African friend who's got an allotment in Warrington, and they occasionally just turn up at my house and give me like 5 different types of squash. So,
wow. Beetroots or radish?
I mean, reluctantly beetroot. Definitely not excited about radish, I'm afraid.
Why reluctantly?
Well, just because I'm not particularly wild about beetroot. Like if you came and said, here's a plate of beetroot and radish, I'd be like, well, I don't. I'll have a, to be polite, I'll have a little sliver of the beetroot, but not
beetroots
not
as part of a bigger dish. It turns everything red. Does that not excite you?
Yeah, I just think colour's not the only. If I had to have a least favourite thing, if you puree it and I mean, what we're saying there is pink is good. Beetroot is nice if you puree it and use it to make bright pink pasta. What's the one that I really aubergine? That's the one, or eggplant in America.
You're not a fan?
I just think it doesn't add anything to the. I'm a vegetarian. So I eat quite a lot of veg and stuff. I've never had aubergine where I've gone, this dish would have been worse without the aubergine. Like it's always just been the things this is with would just be nice without the aubergine anyway. I'm sorry. I understand if you
I am
need me to leave now.
completely of a different mind. I am with Josie. I mean, yeah, I am. Yeah, you should have tried the aubergine in South Africa, says Xate.
I probably should have done. I don't think I did try it in South Africa. It's a weird place, South Africa, to be really experimenting and loving all of the vegetables, because it's also a really meat heavy country. Like we lived in a very rural region, and no one had ever encountered vegetarians before. They were very confused by us. We actually got invited to a wedding, which was amazing. We were the first like Umlungus, the first white people ever to go onto like this family compound. And we went to this wedding, and we were like pride guests. They were very excited that we were there, and they gave. So one of the things they do is they've got quite a lot of bridal customs in South Africa, some of which are actually really quite economically harmful and cause lots of problems. But ignoring that, part of it is cows, and so the groom buys the bride off of her family with a number of cows, and part of that is you then cook one of the cows and eat it at the. But they've been boiling a cow outside in the South African heat for 2 days. And as a doctor who was working in the hospital, seeing loads of people with gastroenteritis, it was not the most. But they gave us this like carrier bag with just a cube of just boiled beef as an honor, and so they gave it to us, and we're vegetarians. Plus, this is the worst smelling thing we have ever smelled in our lives. But we took it home, and I think we just couldn't face eating it. We kind of wanted to as an honor respect thing, but we gave it to our neighbours who were happy and didn't die of gastroenteritis. So that was good.
Well, at least it was enjoyed. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if you agree with this as a vegetarian, but it feels worse if something's just dying and then just being wasted.
Yeah, so my brother's he's more of a freegan. So he is a vegan. Like, so I'm not. I definitely have cheese on pizza. But he's a vegan, but he's very flexible. To the degree of being quite amusingly flexible. He went to a wedding recently, and the vegan option was basically salad, like green leaves, and was quite disappointing because he was hungry, and there was like no carbs. It was just a very light salad, and then all of the other 7 people at the table all got given this spicy beef kebab, and it was too hot for all of them. So my brother, the vegan at the table, ate 7 kebabs.
Oh yeah. Because otherwise it would just get thrown out. It's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Saints wants to share a story about sharing meat portions for veggie, all their veg for half my meat each. Josie wants to recommend brinjal bhaji at the Indian, an amazing aubergine dish. I mean, if you're ever at, I would recommend Horish de Bodham Joan, but that normally comes with meat on it. But Kashka Bodham Joan, Mirza Gosami, try that at some point in your life. Have you ever tried either of these? Kashka Bodham Joan or Mirza Gosami?
No, I don't think I've had either of those.
Those are Iranian dishes. It's kind of like a paste, almost like hummus, but very aubergine. And Xate asks, did you ask what your wife was worth in cows?
It was not a question that it's a conversation that's been had, but yeah, it is. It's an awkward one, isn't it? The thing is, quite aside from the idea that women are possessions or whatever, which it's not necessarily actually saying that. It's more of like a respect thing passing between families. But even quite aside from that, the real issue that we saw a lot of is cows are really expensive, and people can't afford to spend money on, and like you don't actually buy cows, but you give an amount of money equivalent to the cows. But we saw a lot of people, we saw a lot of families and difficult like situations that kind of ensued because people wanted to get married and wanted to kind of move on to that stage in their life and they couldn't, or in doing so they became really indebted and stuff like that. So it's it's an awkward thing to kind of look at. But also, as a white Westerner who was over there, I didn't really want to be just, well, what you're doing is wrong, like as in, so it's a complicated situation.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound really icky to be told your value when just walking along. I mean, what Xate is saying, that doesn't sound great. I mean, but again, yeah, you need to really investigate these things before you can demonize them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the problem is that there's a lot of value in the traditional culture there as well, and actually I could get really into South Africa. Like a lot of the problems that they experience that are as a result of their traditional culture are actually because we went in and really disrupted their culture really horrifically. So a lot of the kind of traditional tribal setups actually probably worked quite effectively, but what we did is uprooted everyone and shoved them in the homelands, where where all of those things that have been present for hundreds of years got disrupted. And so then when you say, well, this isn't working, it's dysfunctional, it's like, well, yeah, but it was thoroughly broken, and that wasn't the fault of the culture. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and yeah, I don't think we've got time to unpack everything that we're going to cover. There's going to be lots of topics that we just sort of skim through. But let's get back to games. What was the last board game that you played?
Oh, aside from Monolith, I played a Carcassonne with CJ Eggett from Tabletop Gaming. It's called Mists Over Carcassonne. It's a cooperative version of Carcassonne, which also has solo play. And we only played a couple of games, and it might need another reread of the rules. But definite initial impression was it was unbalanced to the point of being completely broken. It felt like it really hadn't been play tested very heavily. Could be that we got the rules totally wrong. That's just. Oh yeah, that is Carcassonne. So you see these.
No, that's Mists Over Carcassonne.
Yeah. So see the
I watched a video from Adam Porter, Adam in Wales, who's a lovely game designer who does videos about things from a product design point of view. And one of the things that Adam agreed with you was that the rules were quite terrible, and that a lot of people would play it and then give up, because it sounds like there's a really interesting game there about working out whether to score the points or take the ghosts off, which are potentially going to hurt you later on. But
it was just so it uses this. It works really well as a concept of it. If you look at these grey clouds, these grey fields, they work exactly like cities in normal Carcassonne. So you can complete them and you can build them. But yeah, basically, it just is so punishingly difficult. And it's difficult through luck rather than through, we tried one playthrough where we're like, oh, we are going to take our time and do this as categorically, like, what is the best decision on each tile? We're going to wrestle with it. And then we're just like, oh, we've just lost because of things beyond our control. But I agree with, did you say it was Adam? I agree with Adam. When we opened it and when we started laying it out and when we first read the rules, we were like, this is brilliant. They've taken some well-known vibes from Carcassonne and added something here. It's great. And then it just was, it definitely feels like something that another few hours of playtesting with the designers would have wrinkled out. Instead it plays like no one actually picked it up and played it before bringing it out, which is a shame.
Yeah, that's I'd not heard that said. I'd not done a lot of investigation into it, but it sounds like you wouldn't recommend it to anyone at this point.
I would definitely it's a shame. It's a real. We were both disappointed. It maybe we misread something and there's a slight thing there that makes it that ameliorate. It felt like we already felt like we could maybe home rule a change, but it was quite a significant change, and it just felt awkward.
What is the first game you played? We've talked about the last one, but what's the first game you can remember playing?
I mean, there's probably first real modern board game. I mean, I think the first actual game is probably Monopoly, I think, or Monopoly or Labyrinth. Labyrinth holds up.
The amazing Labyrinth by Ravensburger, where you're shifting the things. That can be, especially with 2 players, that's a really strategic game.
Yeah, and it's great with kids as well. Like it's because I've got 3 kids, so everything I play has a bit of a lens of how will this work. Carcassonne is actually another fantastic one if you have children, or if you're playing with children. You don't have to own the children to play with them, but obviously make sure you have permission from whoever does own the children before you play with those children. The thing is within Carcassonne, so you've got the 4 ways of scoring points, which are lying down, claiming roads, claiming towns, claiming monasteries, or lying down in fields. And when I play with the younger kids, they're just claiming roads and monasteries and cities, and they're ignoring fields, whereas the adults around the table are also claiming fields. And what's fantastic about that is, in doing so, you've got less pieces because you're spending them in fields. And so all the adults get a handicap at the game that the kids are playing, which is just claiming cities and towns and roads. And yet the adults are having their own. So at the end, you do 2 scores. One, how did the kids' game go with the adults? And the adults lose because they've had to waste loads of energy on, or maybe they don't lose because it's a handicap because they're already better at that strategically. And then the adults have their score as well. So yeah, that's great.
So you maybe don't count the fields, and they say, well, without the fields, you won.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you make a big point of it.
Yeah.
But then you add the fields, and then you say, oh, but with the fields, this person won. And so you've almost got like 2 winners in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like you could even lose, you could lose the first game and win the second game. And it's good because the kids just, like my son who's 6, he's not like, oh, I'm not playing the real game. He's like, oh, I beat you. He's not worried that he's not doing the fields. And yeah, it works really well.
That's actually quite a fun way to do it. I've heard of people saying, oh yeah, with younger people, maybe don't bother about the farmer rule, but I've never heard it explained of, well, you can play both things at the same time. That's a really interesting way to do it. When you're playing a game, what is your favorite color to play?
I probably blue. I think one of the things I find a little bit harder is, some games have got really good now at having colors that are very accessible for people who've got different types of color blindness. But unfortunately, as a result, they've tended to go for like less obvious primary colors. So I tend to feel less of an affinity for the colors that are available to me. But I think it's a minor sacrifice that's very worth making.
Like when you've got lavender and lime and things like that.
Yeah, and I don't feel as, if there's no red, and there probably isn't red if you've got a game that's sensitive for red-green color blindness, but yeah, probably blue. I would usually go blue, I think.
Well, you could have a dark forest green and a super bright red potentially.
I think the games that do it, if they're already doing it, they're like, we're just gonna 100% make the most like contrasty options. So I think they just don't tend to then do a dark green and a light red or anything like that. But there would be ways around it.
Just to remind everyone watching, please do comment, ask questions, from like follow, all of that stuff. And I really appreciate all the comments that have been coming out here. And yeah, Xate says, no, you can't have forest green. Xate grabs all the... And because it is a board gaming show in theory, what are some of your favorite games? What would you say is a board game you love, and what is a RPG you love, and what would you say are your favorite kinds of games? Is that a reasonable series of questions?
It is a reasonable series of questions. I would say board game. The problem is, so I've got 200 board games downstairs, so it just becomes very difficult to be like, what is my favorite? So I'm just going to go with one that is consistently good. Power Grid. I wish Power Grid was out there a bit more. It's for those of you who don't know, we'll probably get a picture on the screen in a bit. But for those of you who don't know, you're competing to build different power stations, different power networks. So you're going through different cities, claiming power lines between those cities, and at the same time, you've got to build the infrastructure to power them. So you've got to buy power plants. But it's got some of the best mechanics in there. So it's got auctions. So like Bez might get the nuclear power plant that's quite efficient to run. So Bez might say, I'm going to bid 6 million for this, and I'm like, well, I think I'm going to go 10 million, and Bez is like, oh, 11 million. But what can end up happening as a result? So you go that, so that power plant there's 17 or just 17 million or 17 pounds. What ends up happening is everyone around the table gets all invested on one. Someone ends up massively overspending on that, and then the next one that appears is actually better than the one that everyone else got.
And are all converting certain resources into a certain amount of energy, and then you've got green ones that maybe produce a little bit less energy, but then don't need any resources, which can be really useful. And you're building up this network. And there's so many maps. Like, I don't know which. In this game, Strange Natives had taken over the Northeast, rendering it unavailable for play. That might just be a creative thing where the person uses, because you've got to block off certain.
Yeah, so if you're playing less than 5 players, you don't use the whole area of the map. So there's some bits that you block off.
And yeah,
have you got a shot of the commodities bit at the bottom of the board?
I need to check with Board Game Geek, so it's it takes me a couple of minutes to grab them. But I think people get a good idea, because there is a really nice auction system, I agree, where it's really emergent, I guess is the only way to put it.
Yeah. And then the commodities bit at the bottom is also really interesting. So as you buy stuff, as you buy coal, coal slowly gets more expensive. Everything gets more expensive the less of it is, like supply and demand. But it can mean that if everyone's bought coal power plants, they're all slowly using, and it refills each turn, but a little bit less each time. And so you can end up with a situation where buying enough coal to power your big, greedy, not very efficient coal power plants, which you bought because they were cheap, turns out to cost you more than running like 2 nuclear power plants. So yeah, it's very, there we go. Yeah, so you can see like,
and so each turn there's like a certain amount of stuff that gets placed, and you can see that there's only one, like the red one, is that uranium?
Yeah, so at the moment, the uranium, if you were to buy some uranium, it would cost you 6, where there's actually no coal left on the board at all. But if there was some coal, it would cost you 8. So buying 1 uranium to power your power plant would cost you 6 for a round, whereas potentially buying 2 coal to power your power plant would cost you 16. So yeah, it's an interesting challenge.
And things change their price at different rates, and everything's got its own little idiosyncrasies. It's been a while since I played that, but that's a really good shout.
RPG, I'd probably, I mean, it's a bit of an obvious one maybe, but Morkborg, it was the thing that really, I have to say, I really don't get on very well with Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, if you could show it, so we.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Let's. So it's got some whatever warnings, content warnings. It's a bit grim. So if you don't like things that have blood and gristle, like, it doesn't really get worse than the front cover. But what's so amazing about it is it's just got some of the most vibrant design and layout.
Wow, and so it's all hot yellows and magentas, white and black.
Hot yellows, hot pinks, and then there's just very interesting. So like, if you look at, I might have it over here. If you look at D&D, like if you look at like a weapons list in D&D, I will find any list. I can't find any list now. Apparently they don't exist. This is D&D. This has become not very interesting because I couldn't find. There we go. You get lots of lists like this of like, do you want to get a sword? It's a D, this and this and this. Whereas this is the list of weapons. Okay, so you've got like like, so it's just a person with a load of weapons stuck in them, and then it says what the weapons are, and your basic weapon is just a femur, where you roll a d4. But what I like about it is it's just so simple. It's just so simple. The entire game, they've got a great index at the back, but that there is the entire, like, not, you don't even need this page. This page here is the entire game.
Wow.
And you can just get up and playing immediately and do all of the same things really that you do in D&D. It's all a little bit more lethal. You can make a character who immediately only has 1 hit point and things like that. But I think what that sold me on, if it's all right to slightly plug my own thing, like, sure. As in, so when I did Tyrannosaur Inside, so that was my first kind of big TTRPG project. So I tried to follow a similar vibe of really kind of vibrant art, very kind of varied kind of visual display on things. Where's my favorite bit? Where's the big T-Rex? There we go. There's the big T-Rex. I love the blending of form and function. You know, I think that's you've rolled your femur.
It says I've rolled my femur before, and Panic wants to know what happens if you ready your pelvis.
But you see, that's what's so good about this game is you could just say, okay, that's fine. You can hit people with a pelvis instead if you want. That's a D4. Whereas I heard someone talking about playing D&D, and they were playing this game where there were 2 pirates going across a plank like this, and they wanted to push each other off the plank, and it ended up taking them half an hour to look up the like push rules and to discover that basically technically you can't push someone 90 degrees, and obviously some of that comes down to the games master who can just home rule these things. But I think having a book that's this thick full of rules implies that you should be following those rules, whereas if you've got something where all the rules are just a single page, you kind of know that you could just roll an agility or a strength or whatever, and then just, oh, okay, you know, you push the pirate off. Pelvis would be a D4, I think. I don't think it's like a D8, but if it splinters, you could roll, you know, if you roll a 4 on that D4, now it splinters, isn't it? Is a sharpened pelvis, you know.
And it's interesting because I've been talking recently about how I see games as kind of falling into 2 categories in terms of their agency. So if we think about games with agency, there's the agency of skill, testing the speed you can do something at, the communication within Pictionary, the deals that you're making in another game, you know, the looking ahead and outmaneuvering, strategizing in power grids, whatever. And then you've got the second category, which is all about self-expression. And so D&D is in this weird family where it came out of wargaming, where sure, wargaming is played in the form that we don't really mind too much who wins. We're kind of trying to simulate this battle and tell a story. I mean, a lot of people do play war games in that way, especially back in the day. It's a little bit less likely to happen with modern war games. But back in the day, I think that D&D was very much about, okay, what's the best way for me to eke out my advantage to try and take out these enemies? And it did feel kind of like a game of skill where the role-playing maybe didn't, whilst Dungeons and Dragons really paved the way for modern role-playing, I would say it didn't really embrace role-playing in the way that games which have older rules on one single page do. I don't know if you would agree.
I would. I mean, I'm always careful not to bash too much on D&D because ultimately fun is about having fun, isn't it? You know, and if you're having fun,
and I don't want to say it's a bad game, because for some people, if you like just a smidgen of role-playing and the opportunity for role-playing, but what you really want is to be able to strategize how to overcome this battle, then D&D is the perfect game for you potentially.
But for me, it has really quite regularly been a place of not fun, and I think I think as someone who's quite fluid and we've got a whole conversation going on in chat about how we're going to deal with this pelvis, and which is great, you know, and that's the kind of silly nonsense that I like Morkborg being, you know, how do I make a boat out of this skeleton? You know, it's leaking, so we need to, you're going to roll a d6 every turn, and that's how many inches of water are leaking into the skeleton that you're trying to canoe down a river, you know. And whereas, yeah, I just have generally found
it's like the rule of cool, like just what makes it for the best story.
Yeah, and that thing you have in roleplay of yes and rather than the obvious no. My experience in D&D has it's had a lot of no's, yeah, but that's it's not really, in my opinion, a role play game. It's a game with some role play, like you said, but yes.
Do you think, I mean, obviously what is a good game is a discussion that does deserve its own episode, but do you think a good game for you is a game that is empowering? Because when you say about the yes and versus the no but, I mean, that is kind of, one is clearly more empowering than the other.
It's only empowering if you're really creative and fluid and stuff like that. So I've got a couple of friends with pretty strong kind of autism and stuff like that, and they find that's just rabbit in headlights, as in I'm hating this. Whereas being able to plan and work within a very clear set of rules, and you know, and maybe spend the day before thinking about things, that's empowering for them. So yeah, I think a good game is empowering. It's just, unfortunately, we're not all exactly the same.
That's unfortunate. I mean, to misquote Groove Armada, if everyone looked the same, we'd get tired of playing with each other.
That is true. Bez, how long does this last for?
I normally try to wrap it up before now, but
okay, fine. We've got another one on Monday, and I've got more free time for that. Yeah, that's,
because you have to skedaddle.
Probably.
I feel like we should, we should touch upon everything, but within a rapid fire thing, if that's not too disrespectful to religion or whatever. The chat tries to derail this plan, says Xate.
I'm loving the conversation that is carrying on about pelvises, and that's what I just find Morkborg just does. It says let's just go completely off the rails, because there just aren't really any rails, and it kind of absolutely encourages you to okay, well, we can cover some of those. I would, if we can end on a plug for my current Kickstarter, I would love that.
Yeah, sure.
No pressure if not, but mostly because it's stalled miserably. But do you want to talk about religion briefly?
Why is safety important?
Why is safety important
in RPGs?
Well, I think we've just kind of covered it. It's about being empowered, part of it, isn't it? And I think if it's not safe, you're not having fun. You know, if you're
what's one tip that you would say for crowdfunders?
A tip that I would say for crowdfunders. Oh, I go in with no expectations and have fun. So my first crowdfunder. Oh, look, another thing. The Die Decides, which is a book of microfiction, which you can get at beyondcataclysm.co.uk. I was obsessed. You know, I was like just having a look every 2 minutes of what's going on here. Has anyone gone on? Has anyone gone on? And it was fine, but I did really well, and it made 700 quid, and the book happened, and I didn't enjoy the process. Whereas all of my subsequent ones, I've just said, I don't care. I really don't care. I don't care if it doesn't make any money at all. I'm in this to have fun. And part of that is because I'm not financially dependent on it. But probably most of us shouldn't be financially dependent on the silly ideas we're throwing out onto the internet. Not yet, you know, like as in not immediately. So was that helpful?
I mean, it's always helpful. And I think that, let's have how difficult is it to study for medicine? And would you, if someone wants to give it a go but is struggling, is your website really going to help? And
my website, so I run a website called MedRevise.co.uk, which actually, showing my age, predates Wikipedia. It was the first medical wiki that ever existed. I like wikis because they let you. We've all gone down a rabbit hole on Wikipedia. Of like, oh, now I'm reading about 18th century like sword making, and I started by opening an article on printers. And it's good for that. So like, as in, if you're like, oh, okay, well, blood, and then blood leads to infection, which leads to this thing on cancer. So I found that was quite helpful because a lot of medicine is very tied together. If you come to me with a sore throat, I need to be thinking, why do you have a sore throat? But also, could this be a sign of a blood condition or something like that? But yeah, it's also, you can see there, like, I take a pillow to lectures. It's aimed at being quite silly in a lot of things. If you go to specialties, go down, go to pediatrics.
Okay.
And then click respiratory. If you go down that one, pediatric respiratory. And so this is a sad, geeky medical joke. Like a blatant contravention of NICE guidelines, which are the guidelines that we use to guide our clinical practice. But so it's full of sad, weird in-jokes, but it also tries to just, like most of the time as a junior doctor, you need to know this sore throat is probably caused by an infection of strep or a virus. And then you maybe need to know about XYZ, like in the back of your head. And if you go onto the Wikipedia page on sore throats, it'll be 10,000 words and covers everything you could possibly ever know. And you don't actually need that for like those kind of initial kind of management of conditions. So there we go. We haven't covered religion. Let's do religion in a minute.
So what is the biggest way that religion impacts your life on a day-to-day basis, impacting your day-to-day decisions?
So I follow Jesus, who says that you should love your neighbor, and that you shouldn't judge them, really. And I think a lot of what I do is just motivated out of just trying to see the joy and excitement that is inside people, and bringing that to life and loving that within them. And I think there's quite a lot of weird, annoying Christians on the internet who seem to really enjoy not being very loving and judging people. And I'm like, have you actually read anything in the new? There was a brilliant one, I saw this Twitter thread, which isn't really about this, but it was about like, you can't serve God and money, and it basically was this whole thread of really, really communist sounding statements that were all from Jesus. And like, someone was saying, well, I don't believe any of that. And it was like, and then the person followed up with chapter and verse of where each of these things had come from. And I was like, yes, fight the system. There is no there is no ethical consumerism within a capitalist system. I think Jesus would be on board with that too.
Yeah, there is a lot of problems with right now. Let's have a quick turnaround. So I've asked you lots of questions. What's a question you'd like to ask me? Question of the day, question of the day. It's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day.
So you have a lot of board games, do you?
As in board games I made, or board games made
own by
other people that I possess? Either way, yes.
If someone wants to buy you a board game for Christmas, is that a difficult thing for them to do?
I would rather, especially now that I'm moving, I'd probably say, yeah, please don't. I mean, I've got enough unplayed things, frankly. I feel like, for me, the best gift, if you're asking me what would be a good gift, like, yeah, actually, for everyone else, would you appreciate someone guessing and trying to buy you a board game, or would you rather they give you something else? What would be the best gift for you? I think that's a good question. For me, the best gift is time spent together. The best gift might be something edible, but maybe low sugar, maybe like high cocoa chocolate, maybe a curry, maybe like an eggplant stew, maybe mushrooms in there. I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
What I would like to do is take you out for a curry in Birmingham. I found the best curry house. Yeah.
I did not even realize you were based in Birmingham.
I'm not. I'm based in Warrington. In Warrington, but I travel to Birmingham just to visit Shababs sometimes. Like,
wow. Okay.
But yeah, that would be good.
So for everyone else, please let us know. And over to you. What are you up to? You can share potting if you want to. What are you up to after this? I am going to, just traveling like the 4 meters to the loo, frankly, this morning. It's been a bit of a struggle. So I'm probably not going to go outside realistically. I'll sit down and I'll play a quick game of Dwindle, see how I get on, do Board Game Arena, probably have a bit more sleep, but hopefully I'll be up to having like a little walk around the block. I'll see how I get on. What are you up to?
I'm going to be doing some plastering, or I'm going to get some plastering done on our community centre, and then it can finally be finished, and some carol singing later. So that'll
and
be,
presumably, are you doing anything for your Kickstarter?
I'll do a bit of twittering if I can ask people to check this out. Let me just read you go down a bit. Let me just read you this bit. Cast away your pathetic, childish fantasies. This is no winter wonderland. There are no toys here, no candy, no songs about tinsel and joy. This is a harsh, bleak wasteland of chemical spills, centuries-long elvish serfdom, and utterly absent hope. This is a land where the bells don't jingle, they toll. It's basically a silly comedy, like horror thing. It's not. It's exactly as tongue-in-cheek as Morkborg, and it's the idea of, instead of Santa existing, there's a big horrible alien at the North Pole instead. But if you felt like checking it out, because no one has really, so that'd be lovely. But no pressure either. You'll get a PDF at midnight on Christmas Day as well, so you'll be able to play it with your family. Maybe.
There is one line that I was really curious about the shipping, which was,
oh dear.
If you can't write, print and post it so that I'd receive it by the 25th of December, and you have like a slightly sarcastic bit, your Christmas will be utterly bereft of meaning, hope and love. And I'm not sorry, just to be really clear here, Kickstarter were previously rightly not happy with my very casual disregard to delivery times. Could you explain what you mean by this?
Okay, so I actually tried to launch this last year. I think I tried to launch it on about the 13th of December with a plan of trying to finish it and get it printed and posted to people by the 25th of December. So I was going to do the whole thing in about 3 days and send it off to the publishers and get it printed and get it out. And I basically just had my entire Kickstarter brief was just like, obviously this is a silly idea. It's probably not going to work. And basically Kickstarter were like, we don't really like your approach of cavalier disregard for just actually fulfilling the. And I think it was written very much in a style that anyone who read it would be like, I'm going to try, but you're probably going to get it in early January. But because I was kind of I atoned for that and made it a little bit less intensely ridiculous, because I think the challenge of it was quite fun. Like I said, I think people would have bought into that idea of that challenge, or maybe not. But oh, my sound's gone. You're muted. You're muted, Bez.
Please do check that out, and I've put it in the comments for everyone to check out. Xate says, mostly relaxing today. Might try to learn Elfenland from a German rulebook, and it is on VGA, but then Japel's guards wouldn't get to practice their German. And Panic is going to see Santa this morning. This afternoon, I'll be on Games of Fire channel doing a craft stream, making a glass snowman.
Nice.
That sounds lovely. And I just want to compliment all this amazing storytelling about the monster kind of getting married and going off on a life of newly bliss, and Panic trying to get out of marriage. And yep. This is just completely ridiculous, and I absolutely love it. And I think it shows both, as you say, what can happen when you give people absolute freedom, but also, as you say, it's not quite correct for everyone. I mean, some people do prefer something a little bit more structured.
Bez, on Monday, do you fancy playing my incredibly not structured D13 game, Lucky for None? We could definitely do that in about a half-hour stream.
That would be interesting. Also, I'm wondering whether I would definitely like to do it. I would also like to chat more about religion and Kickstarters and other stuff, because it feels like we skimmed over things a bit.
Sure, that's fine. Well, we can always do more than one more, can't we, as well? So
we could. If you're up for that, let's do that. Let's talk about recap and wrap up before we finish up. We chatted about Jurassic Park, sweaters, Christmas, being sick, board game arena, back to life, home, Monolith, a lovely game, being a police officer and a GP and an A&E person and a community pastor and a writer and a publisher, so kind of 6 jobs. Having a 50mm lens, just sometimes being forced. I think it's all about restrictions breeding creativity. That sometimes you have the wrong lens for the job, and then you have to get creative. We talked about butternut squash and not liking tomato juice, but enjoying tomatoes, gen squash, vegetables, aubergine, a cube of beef, stewing, boiling in the heat for 2 days. Potential misogyny, but by remembering that you can't just go in somewhere and demonize someone. You need to understand them first. I think that's super important. We talked about Power Grid and Morkborg, and then we ran out of time, and then we skimmed through everything and talked about Kickstarters and religion. Now, if you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in all of the places. And if someone would like to check you out, Chris,
I am CM Lowry author in all of the places. So on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you can find me. My blog is allaboutchris.org, and everything that I publish and other people's work that I publish and our distro is at beyondcataclysm.co.uk, which we haven't talked about at all. So we'll probably do that on Monday. Yes, I mostly at the moment Twitter, even though it's sort of dying, I kind of hope it doesn't die, because I actually have really enjoyed the kind of friendship and community that I've sort of built up on there. But yes, we'll see.
Sate says that you have been approved to return, but not on Mondays, because Sate has team meetings then, so please come back on not Mondays in the future.
Excellent.
You can always watch old episodes, you realise.
Yeah, but we can't live interact, can we, in the same way?
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, the benefits of watching it after the fact is if you go to YouTube, you can pop it on double speed or whatever. But
thank you very much for having me, Bez. I absolutely need to run, so I should.
Yes, 100%. I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone. And the only thing left to say is bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone.